right, welcome back to Van Halen Stories, episode number 11. Today, my guest is Craig Parker Adams, all the way from Los Angeles, California. And Craig is a producer, engineer, guitarist. He was the owner of, I guess you're still the owner of your studio, which is called, tell me again.
Winslow Court Studios.
Right, which originally was a studio that was an older building in Hollywood, you said, right?
That's right. It was considered to be one of the first recording studios ever built in the world
Wow.
for film. Yeah. So it was built around the early 1900s, turn of the century. And it
So,
was an old Foley studio.
okay, so you've been out there recording acts for how long?
Well, I've been in LA for 33 years, 34 years, and officially recording bands for a living and artists since basically the late 90s to around 2000. So, over 20, 25 years.
Right,
It's been my sole life of what I do and how I survive. And,
right,
you know,
right.
so
Your story is pretty awesome, though. It goes back to St. Paul, Minnesota,
that's right.
when you were a kid. What I always do on these things is I always want to know that first moment when you heard Van Halen and what it was and what got you started with Van Halen, and then kind of progress to your first show, if you don't mind, sir.
No, not at all.
That's,
Okay. Well, to start that, I have to say my first experience with Van Halen was actually seeing them. So, and this was where I went to the record section inside of a store one morning in 1978 with my sister, rummaging through the bins, and I was already playing guitar by the time and was in a musical household and whatnot. And I came across the cover of Van Halen 1, and I was just honed in and awestruck on the photo of Edward and seeing that guitar that's sitting over your right shoulder.
mhm.
It just absolutely floored me. I could not believe what I was seeing. To me, he looked like because there was never any photographs of Crazy Horse. And so I was like, if Crazy Horse looked like anything, he looks like this.
Right,
And then
right.
also a mix between that and Bruce Lee. So, which is funny. I shared that with Ed years later, and he's like, "Oh, I like that." So he thought that was cool. So, anyways, I saw this picture, and it affected me so much that I left that store, went immediately home, and I duct taped stripes onto my acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the quest for hearing what does this band sound like began. And like a lot of us out there, we were lucky enough to have older brothers and older sisters that turned us on to things. And so my friend's older brother, he had Van Halen 1, and he played it for me one day. His name was Jimmy Tap, and Jimmy Tap played me Van Halen 1, and it was over. And I was a big Kiss guy for years, and then this just took center stage for me.
Right.
And I heard that record, and I tried everything I could to barter with Jimmy Tapp to get that record, but he wouldn't. I used to get records from him, trade things. My parents would always go, "Hey, where's that?" And I traded it, like some game or toy or whatever it could have been. So anyways, that's how I first came across them. And then I would just be hearing little spotty things on the radio. And in 1980, I tried to see Van Halen. I'd already been to concerts by this time. I saw Kiss with Judas Priest in 79. And so in 80, when they came around to the St. Paul Civic Center at the Armory, April 13th, I tried to see that show, but my parents wouldn't let me go. So that was really distressing to me. Like, oh, I don't understand, but anyways, I couldn't go. So now, half a year or so or a year later, you hear Unchained on the radio. And that was a definitive life changer for me because I'd never heard anything that sounded so tough, cool, sassy, and a drop D like that. It was just, we all know when we heard it. And so it was one of those deals where back, the way the radio worked is, I would never hear the song fully. It would always be when you turn it on, it's in the middle of the song or at the end of the song, or you know what I mean? It was like, oh God, I love this song. So anyways, it was undeniable that I was going to go see them in 1981. I was not going to take no for an answer. My parents knew that, so it was on. So when the record came out around April or so, and there's a photo of me on my website where I'm just sitting on this little flower bed in my front yard. My sister took that photo. that photo is the closest thing in existence to when this experience that I'm about to share happened for me, which is why this is on this new record of mine and why this photo means so much when I came across it, because I can literally track it down to April or May of 1981. And what happened is that when Van Halen Fair Warning came out, I borrowed that record from a friend of mine. And when I was listening to it in my childhood bedroom on my brother's stereo, when the fourth song started, Hear About It Later, when the intro came on, I literally had a out-of-body, life-changing experience. And the best way to talk about it basically is that something took my heart from out of my body and made it separate from me. And I had never had any experience like that, where I was like kind of looking at it and separated from it. And I was trying to figure out like, what is going on here? I don't get it. And a literal voice came into my head and it said, you're going to spend your entire life trying to figure out how to do this, how to make this happen. Like the feeling my heart was having, I had to learn, like that was my life's mission. You need to learn how to do this, and you're going to do it by studying this one artist alone. That there was a lifetime of seeking in just this one artist alone. Mm-hmm. And I was by myself when all this happened, and it was very odd and strange and all of that. But I basically agreed and made the declaration that, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to spend my life and I'm going to try and learn how to do this. Well, whatever that means, I don't know, but that's my mission. I accept. I'm going to do it. And right. So that started. So within 2 months of that experience, I then went and I'd seen Van Halen July 7th, 1981 at the St. Paul Civic Center. So this is the first time they're headlining arenas, 17,000 seaters. Mm-hmm. And I went with my friend Rob Tapp, who was Jimmy Tapp's brother, who turned me on to the first record. So him and I went. His dad dropped us off. Told me, I don't want you guys smoking any of that stuff there, It's, I'm 12, and it was incredible. For the people who know what the 81 show was like, it was unbelievable. It just was unbelievable. And it was a very unique looking show for the band. The lighting was very cool. It was a very dark show. At this time, they were still kind of known. They had a reputation of being bad boys, which you look back and he's like, that seems silly, but they were the bad boys of rock at that time. That's how they were marketed per se. And it was just real tough, and then the show that I saw, for those who don't know, 1981 had two backdrops.
Right. You had mentioned that. And you know what? I kind of remember that second backdrop that you were talking about. One's the cityscape.
Yes.
That lights I guess it lights up from either the front or the back. I'm not sure how they lit it, but
right.
And then they had, you said the city was in ruins in another one.
Yes. Yeah. So yep. Go ahead.
And of course, for the people who don't know, who haven't never seen the videos, the entire stage was stacks of speakers, which was sort of the iconic mountains of cabinets that you and I both just probably, was like, I don't know what it was about that whole setup, but it just did it for me, man.
No.
So the night you saw them, they didn't have the backdrop that had the cityscape. It had a cityscape that was destroyed.
That's right. City in ruins and rubble. And so there's an online video of Memphis of them shot from the soundboard, and it has the rubble backdrop. So I highly recommend watching that. Now, you only see little hints of it throughout like the first hour of the show, or 45 minutes. They don't really illuminate it until Mean Street, which is, 3/4 of the way through. But Mean Street is such a tough, badass riff. And then that you see, they go, okay, here you go. And you see this city, like it just in rubble. It's got the same vibe and essence as the Fair Warning cover, like you have on one of your guitars, right? I know, and the shirt, yeah. So it has that energy. It's just like, I don't know that I really want to go down that street. You know what I'm saying? But when you see that, it was it just obviously, along with so many other things, it left a huge mark, you know. And so I was always fond of that. And that backdrop is very rarely seen or photographed, you know.
Right.
So anytime I come across it or I see a glimpse of it, it's just like, it takes you right back.
Right.
Um, Here's something I've never actually shared before. When Rob and I were at the show and the show was about to start, and we were on Ed's side, you know, on the first tier, you know, in the stadium, you know, I don't know the correct term for what that is, but, you know, the first little, you know, you got the main floor and then the first tier. We're like right here on the side. And so Ed's, you know, it's like from there to there, and it probably looks backwards on the screen, but we could see in between the curtains on the side of the stage a little bit, and we could see Roth warming up with exercises before they came out.
Right.
You just saw this really, because he had just bleached his hair, so his hair was extremely blonde, right?
Right. Right.
And you could see the crack between the curtains, and there was a big blue mat, and you just saw him tumbling and jumping and stretching, and it's like, fucking there he is, you know. There's
Right.
super cool. So that was a neat thing. But so the concert, of course, you know, it changed your life, and you got to experience what that feeling was like, to walk out of a show when they were at that kind of prime area before they started getting bigger and bigger. So to me, that was the prime before the big, because Pretty Woman took them to another level.
Yeah, I was gonna say 1984. You know, that's when my first concert to see them. Right. They
Uh-huh.
were like at the giant level, right? And
Yeah.
there was something about the stuff that you guys saw. You know, 80, 81, that middle prime area where they first hit all
Yeah.
this energy they had.
Yeah.
That I always wish I had seen, because
Sure.
I mean, people talk. My buddy talked about crying after seeing this show. You know, like literally sitting down in a chair and
Yeah.
tears from a rock show. You know, so I just, you know, in watching those videos from Oakland, you know, obviously that was what inspired me, as that video for Unchained. But man, something about that show at that time. That's
That's
why I really wanted to have like you on here, because I knew you were at this show and it was that kind of experience for you.
It was. And you know, I think it was also, it got deeper because I was 12,
Right.
and the average concert goer at that time, from my recollection, it seemed like everybody was like 18 and older, and it seemed like everybody was a biker. Like it was a different, seriously, it was like, it was a very different kind of scene, you know. It was it just had an energy to it. Also too, being right after the 4th of July, it was like fireworks bonanza inside of that arena. I mean, they were constantly going off. I had an M80 bounce literally off of my foot and down 2 steps. And
Wow.
I mean, it's amazing nobody got hurt, but yeah, I used to see like the bottle rockets bouncing off the roof. And I mean, so that was a whole spectacle.
What was the actual date of your concert?
July 7th.
Okay, so it's a couple of days after Detroit. There's some pictures that a photographer that I bought from a photographer
Uh,
from the Detroit shows that were over the 4th of July weekend. I think there might have been 2. And they're famous because there's red, white, and blue ribbons all over them.
oh
And
yeah.
there's pictures of this where you see Valerie like wrapping Eddie in ribbons, and they're
Wow.
out on the stage in ribbons. So this is just a few days later that you saw it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was really cool. And then something else that was to I'll tell you, like what I remember kind of the most about it was the lighting and the power of great lighting, because they got bigger and bigger light shows, obviously, but the lighting of that tour in particular was really great. The greens were really deep, the reds were really deep, and the best way to see that is when Dave does the intro. He does a whole spiel going into Everybody Wants Some, and so they got this shtick going on between him and Al and Pete Angelus, the lighting director. And you really got to see these amazing colors going on where Dave talks about bringing in jungle lighting, you know.
Right.
And
So would you say this lighting, it wasn't like overwhelming bright? It was more mood.
It was mood. It definitely, it was much deeper, like because there was so much black. It was a dark concert.
Mm-hmm.
So there was so much darkness on the stage that anytime any little light went off, that it would illuminate the rings of the speaker cabinets a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that just gave this kind of ominous, almost like tanks or something sitting there. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, it was intimidating, but cool, tough. It was tough.
Yeah.
And so when they just worked the lighting really well, and so it wasn't an overly lit stage at all. So a little went a long way, and the depth and the richness of the colors made it quite intense, even though they're in certain sections. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when the first D chord comes in for Everybody Wants Some, white lights for the first time in the show,
Right.
really bright, and the whole arena's lit up. So the whole stage is lit up and the whole arena's lit up. And that is so I mean, I got chills just thinking about that. That is so tough with those chords and that wash of cymbals and and then Dave just standing there like this, you know what I mean? It's just, and so,
Pete Angelus, one of the things one of the people I would like to get is Pete Angelus because of his involvement with the backdrops, with the lighting, and all these concepts. There's actually a show that I just ran across for the first time, 79 Montreal. I just saw it very dimly. I thought maybe it was just the camera being not able to deal with the lighting being low. It was super low lighting, only a couple of spots. And then it looked almost like the Van Halen 2 cover. It was a dark kind of blue, and then the way that they framed it. So I wonder if, those things were not intentional with Pete Angelus to try to frame these images from the album a little bit, or take them a little further, like with Fair Warning, where you're talking about the look of the stage with looking like tanks. And there's quite a bit of creativity there with Pete, with all of those things that we would see, with the lighting blasting you at one moment, and then all the different aspects. So such cool ideas.
Absolutely. And then also in those days, there was individual spots to follow them wherever they went. So it could be completely dark, but they're just illuminated in a spotlight. And that is a cool look. I mean, there's so many great photos and even these videos that are out that show that. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right. It's Pete, but I would say more so it's Pete and Dave, or Dave and Pete, because, that carried right over to the tour books. Mm-hmm. To the shirts, everything. There was a mixture of that in all of the visual aspects of what they did. And I think that's where the brothers didn't really care about stuff like that.
Right. They weren't into the image part of it.
They're into the notes, and that was their lives. And that's kind of the cool dichotomy, or just the fact that they're different than Roth, because in a band, if it's nice that you're all aligned, you definitely want that on certain things, but it's helpful to have people that have different eyes to see different things, to bring a wider vision to what was what, and what it could be.
Right. Well, that definitely, the combination of the musical side and the show side of it, it was the thing that made this band,
yes.
It was. When I think about these backdrops and these looks and all this stuff that Van Halen did, the Dropped Eve, and these are things that might have been in, the popular concerts of the time, but I don't remember. I mean, I saw some shows, other than Kiss, there wasn't a lot of backdrop show pieces. There wasn't a lot of that. I saw Foreigner back in that era. Pretty, Billy Squier, very stripped down, guitars, amps. So I could go back. I'm sure there were some, but really, from that point on, all this backdropping and all this theatrical part of this grew. Maybe Alice Cooper would have been in that group of people who did something similar. But, what we know today is LED screens with lots of stuff we saw as backdrops back then. And today, if you think about Iron Maiden, somebody brought this up, Iron Maiden still does the hardcore backdrops, and they pull them, almost every song. Yeah. Such an effective tool, for setting the mood. And it
Oh,
started
yeah.
back then with, I mean, this particular tour and that look, like you were talking about, just for some reason hits me as a point where that kind of began starting to build for them.
Yeah. Well, the success was coming. And so the even though they pretty much stayed in arenas, I mean, they didn't, I mean, you could think of the select shows where they did stadium stuff, with the Stones at was it the Cotton Bowl or the Orange Bowl in Florida and
Yeah.
things like that. And the US Festival, of course. But basically, they were just crushing arena night after night after night after night. And 84 obviously is the pinnacle of this because, you know, the light show was everything was just so much more. So it was just growing and growing and growing. The speakers got higher. They used the same speaker look from 81,
Yeah.
82, 84. Those were flag systems, I think is what
Right.
they were called. And so they were definitely onto something with the look. The lighting just got more extreme for 84.
Hey,
And
let's go back though, because you didn't tell your story about chasing Eddie Van Halen down in the street.
oh yeah. Okay. So that's 1982. That's 1982. So
Okay.
So anyway, so 84. Oh, the last thing I'll say about 81.
Okay.
So 81 show's over, lights come on. You're looking across an arena that you can barely see across from all the smoke and it's all the chaos
Right.
and the whole place starts leaving. And remember where I said, because we're over, towards the side of the stage. Like if I'm the stage looking out, I'm here basically.
Right.
Ed's over here, and we're like right here. So we had a clear shot of the whole stage and everything on it, and it was great. Lights come on, we leave. You walk outside the arena. We walk all the way around, halfway around the arena, and all of a sudden you hear a crowd surge. And then you hear like the opening of the show again. Like, what? They're back on, and now we're outside.
Right.
And so everybody's trying to get back into the building. There's the people who are in it, of course, but there's all the people that are outside going, what? And so I just remember with my little fingers trying to, because there's no handles on the doors, trying to dig in and wedge in these little cracks to get a door open. And I was able to do it. And what I should have said before I set this up is that they didn't play Unchained. So the song we wanted, they didn't play it.
Right.
So we left, we're outside, they come back on, we were rushing to get in. Now I'm directly across from the stage. And Rob and I walk in, and the big VH comes down, and they played Unchained, and we saw it straight across, which was, of course, incredible and otherworldly. But that legitimately happened. So that must have been a good 10 minutes with the lights on, the music playing, and then I don't know, hour. Oh, we didn't do that song. Let's go back. I mean, how did that? It was something broke. I don't know. But so that happened. Okay. Anyways, 1982 came, and at this point, I now know how it works, and I go to the hotel where they're staying.
Right.
And I find the tour bus. I see a limo. This is at a place called the Radisson Plaza in downtown St. Paul, and there's a limo parked in this like drive-through, ground floor drive-through, which is near a side door for the hotel. Right. And then there's a tour bus parked out front. And there's nobody there. There's maybe, like 4 or 5 people or something. And then I'm with like 4 people. And there's a guy standing around with a walkie-talkie. And now when I look back, I think that was Dave's security guy, Eddie Anderson. And I went up to him, and for some reason, I asked him if he was the bus driver. And he didn't like me asking him that question. And he tried to just kind of shoo me away. And I'm like, who's here? And he basically told me, we're waiting on 2 of the guys. Now get out of here, go over there. So I knew there was at least 2 people they were waiting for. We didn't know who they were. And so we're now standing right across from the limo on this little curb waiting, looking around. There's an entrance here, and then the limo's in front of us. The bus is over here, and just waiting and waiting. And then all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, there's Ed just walking by himself on the sidewalk. And it was an unworldly experience because it's like, here's this guy, he's right there in the wild of just nature with you.
Right.
And he's nobody's with him, and he's just walking. And he looked so cool. I can't tell you how cool he looked. And the way he walks was very cool. And, he just had really great hair that just covered the side of his face. He was looking down and he walked. And then about 10 feet behind him, all of a sudden, here comes Roth. And he's with two big security guys with him. And he's carrying his drink, and he's, already looks like he's a bit hammered and stuff. But he just looks amazing.
Right.
And all of a sudden, Ed gets in the limo. And as soon as he did that, now he's right across from me. He's, 15 feet from me now. And as soon as he got into the limo and slid into the side closest to me, I got off the curb and went right up to the glass of the limo. Right. And I had that necklace that you're wearing there.
Right.
And he, as soon as I came right up to him, he just looked and started smiling at me, and he's literally, the glass was not tinted.
Okay.
So he could see me. I could see him. I could see the stubble on his beard and his big grin and just how awesome he looked. And like, he's there. He is the guy from all the photos, the posters on my wall. It's like, wow. And, I grabbed my necklace and I was like this. I remember looking at your hands, like, all shake. He basically smiled and he gave me the big thumbs up, because when I did this, I did this. And so he did it back to me, the thumbs up, and then smiled. And then Dave got in, and then they're like, okay, get back. And they drove off. And I just, like, that energy I was talking about, I didn't know what to do. I could have climbed a skyscraper or something. I just had so much energy. I just ran after the limo and through the streets of St. Paul, just running cars. I right down the lane, right behind it for a good couple blocks. And I couldn't believe it. And then I kind of walked back to my friends who are standing there, like, looking down the street at me running down the block. And
so the question I got
stunned.
So the question I got for you is that when we'll get into this, that you finally meet Edward and get some time with him. Did you tell him this story?
No, I never shared that. Not that I can remember. I did share with him 81 or 84. Because well, no, I don't think that I shared that story with him. 84 I did, which is a whole nother thing, which is where we're headed now.
Yeah, sure.
But so that 82 experience was just great, because you could, in a small town like where I came from, to be able to get that close to this force of nature that's set you on a path, I mean, it's with no disrespect, it's kind of like the closest thing to seeing God, I suppose. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's just, so to really be that close, to actually have an interaction where he's looking into your eyeballs, he's looking at you, and that's a transfer of energy right there. And it's just like, and then he's responding to me with a smile and a big thumbs up. You're like, yeah, kid. All right. That's a cool rock star mentor right there, as opposed to the ones that blow everybody off. I love that he did that. So anyways,
well, I saw this. What's funny is that one of my guests is a good friend of mine that I grew up with, and he met Edward on tour when he was with them in '95 on tour, and he said it was like his family back home in Alabama meeting Jesus. Yeah. For him, the first time he got to sit down with him alone and spend time.
Right.
So yeah, for you and anybody who loved him, that's the thing, right?
It was so special. It really was. I mean, I'll leave it right there. Yeah. It's so special. And you hope that everybody on the planet gets to have that experience for whatever it means to them, whoever it is, whether it's, Bo Jackson or, Arnold Palmer or Andy Rooney. I don't know, whoever somebody likes, you know what I mean?
People that inspire us. Yeah. People that inspire us.
Get to them if you can, in a meaningful way without causing harm or anything, and it could be a beautiful experience to, put some extra wind in your sail for sure, even though I wasn't doing it for that, but, we're looking back and it's like, it did a lot just having that experience. And then I saw the show, of course, and it was great. I think it was August 10th, 1982 is when I saw that tour. Mm-hmm. So another great show, sonically a very different sound than the year before. Just the whole PA system, things changed a lot. Things got more compressed and things, but still really great. But 84 was the big deal for me, in the sense that I had front row at Ed's feet.
Right.
And that was incredible. And what was wild is for like the first, I'd say maybe up until about Jamie's Crying. So I don't know how far, if that was like about 6, 7, 8 songs into that set list. So for quite a while, when they hit the stage, I immediately went right up to the stage, and nobody else did. They all stood where their seats were. Right. And the chairs are about, 6 feet or 8 feet, the front row. There's a big aisle there, big gap. And then there's the barrier with the security guys and the stage. I just went right up to it and kept looking back to my friends like nobody came up to the stage. So it was wild. So I wasn't getting squashed or nothing. It was like, this was great. And for that whole first string of tunes, Ed was like playing just for me. He kept looking at me. He kept smiling at me. He'd make, little hand gestures and whatever, and come right over. And I mean, I couldn't believe it. But what struck me though, is that I started, because of the stage height, his feet really grabbed my mind's attention. And this is where I really had this epiphany that ended up kind of adding to my life's journey, where I started noticing that it didn't really matter what his fingers were doing. They were going to be incredible, whatever. It didn't matter. Touch this, touch that. Oh, amazing, amazing, amazing. Everything amazing, here, amazing, here, amazing. It's just, right. But it wasn't telling me anything for some reason, like the way he moved his body and the way his feet connected to the ground and the way he'd slide and at least all this really kind of elegant and graceful kind of thing that he had going on when he played his guitar. And so that stuck deep with me. Like, this is telling me more than watching his hands. But anyways, that ended up being an approach for my life's journey, where I started just really kind of paying attention to Edward and his feet and the way his body moved. Told me so much more about what he was conveying, as opposed to my fingers here and there.
Yeah, but you and I were talking about this earlier off camera, but there was a thing that came from him. One of the things that made me think of this from when you said this before was, I do this. I copy this off of him just from, I don't know why, but you watch the videos and you pick things up. And one of the things he does is the way he taps his foot in the Hear About It Later video. You see this, right?
Yeah.
You see him in time. You see him feeling the music. I think this thing that you're talking about is that you're feeling what he's feeling that moment. You're feeling the music. Like, before you and I started really to be able to play, we could feel the way he felt through his body movements, through his foot tapping, through his movements on stage, through his face. There was something about the way he communicated through his body that like you're talking about, that told you everything that you could feel that from him. Like you were feeling it. He was like implanting that in me somehow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like a Highlander, feel the stag, if you know that part. It's like, there is a conveyance and it comes across. And that was so clear to see now with no obstructions and literally, 5 feet in front of me here, all of this stuff. And so I mentioned Jamie's Crying. So he would sing that line and he would do like he's crying, right? Oh, Jamie's crying, right? And I asked him, I said, hey, Ed, I want to pick. We actually talked and stuff. Like he would say things, I don't remember what they were, but he would say things. I would yell stuff, again, kind of like that kid running down the street after the car. I mean, you're just on fire, you know what I mean? So it's just haywire. And he, I suppose, was sensing that, oh, this kid is really having a good time. I like, hey, Ed, give me, I want to pick. I want to pick. He goes, okay, hold on. Right. And this isn't Jamie's crying. And this around this time, this is where more people started coming up behind me now. Right. So it's getting a little crowded in here up against the stage. He comes over, he leans down, and he tosses me a pick. And it's like, whoosh, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, it's for him. It's for him. It's for him. He says that like 3 times, this is for him, and I'm down on the ground and I didn't get it.
Oh man.
Yeah. And I got back up, and the show's going on some more. And he's looking at me, and I'm now there's people around, right? So it's not as easy to see me because it's like I'm starting to feel the pressure behind me. And, anybody who's ever been in the front row of a concert understands what that's like, so it starts getting a little wild. And I'm like, I didn't get the pick. I didn't get the pick. And he's like, hold on. And now Little Guitars comes up. You know how he likes to slide on his knees in that part of the tune? Mm-hmm. He does that. He slides right over in front of me, and he takes it and he pans and he puts it in my hand to make sure that I got it. And I got it. I got the pick sitting right next to me right now. Put it in my hand.
Let's see it. I want to see it, bro. Show me that. Don't show it to us.
Oh, let's see.
Come on.
All right. It's in here. I also got one from Mike Anthony at that show.
Awesome. Yeah, those are pretty cool.
And so here it is. Let's see if anybody can see that there. And then it's just the basic.
Red Halen, yep. Awesome.
And that's the pick he put in my hand all those years ago. And I had showed him this. So I told him that story. And, it's funny. I don't get, like we talked about so much stuff, but things like that, it's like they don't remember because he's making dreams come true every single night, and you just think that is so awesome.
Well, yeah, but still, even though he doesn't remember it, it's still nice that he knows he did that for you.
Yeah, well, again, because he was a sensitive guy. He could feel what it did to me. So, you know what I mean? Because it's like you go back to that moment and all of a sudden you're just all charged up. So that's authenticity, and so you can't really hide that,
So do you remember which outfit he was wearing when he was doing this?
Yeah, it was the Dice shirt, the the red bandana and the jeans.
Yeah,
and it was like bowling tennis shoes,
leather patch. Jeans,
yeah.
Those are cool.
Yeah, and what's funny is every time Roth would come by and he'd be right in front of me, he would not look down.
Really?
Dave only looked out, or even above the line, like you know what I mean. He looked out and then up a little. Huh. So he would never, maybe I was the wrong persuasion, but he did not look down. You just yell right at him. He's just like, I ain't looking down at you, kid. So, and Mike Anthony, like I said, he came over and I got a pick from him as well from that same show. That was just another kind of life-changing experience, of course. And it got me on a real deep level. It got me, very mindful about things when I watched him play from then on. And then I just got more deeper into like, just how it affected me as a guitar player and my approach. And I think you can just sum all of that up into anybody's individual quest for their excellence. Right. Do you know what I mean? So now that you get to see the master right in front of you like that. And I also had another experience where we'll jump ahead like 6 years or we'll get to it, where I was at the rehearsal. Right. And so now I'm just in front of Ed's rig, and it's, there's no crowd, or it's, and that affects you. So seeing them at all these different levels, it does something to you. And especially if you're looking to them as how you want to be, you take a lot away from each of those experiences.
Sure. So you're 16 in 84?
Probably, 15. I was born in December of 1968. So, and they were there in March.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes me 15 or 16, but
Yeah, you're my
somewhere right around in there.
exactly my age. I saw him in January of '84, and
Oh, okay.
I was 15 because I turned 16 in June that year.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, 15. And that was my first Van Halen show. And when I think back about that show, I think
You made it though. You got to see the original lineup.
I did. So
And
that
that's
was good.
special. No
That is
offense to all you who didn't, but
right.
that's special.
I got in there under the line.
Yeah.
But when I think back about that show, I was kind of up on the right side, up in the lower level,
Hmm.
and with my friends. And I think of the Panama video because there's a couple shots that are shot from that area in whatever arena it is. But
Hmm.
it looks just like the arena I was in, with the
Nice. Yep.
show. So every time I see the Panama video, it's just like I'm back,
Beautiful.
seeing it all over again. Yeah, and that show was, for us, I think Kiss was the biggest show I'd seen to that point, which was '79
Oh yeah, I saw 79 too. Yeah.
Dynasty Tour.
Who
And
opened when you saw him?
oh God, you know what? I'm not sure who did for you.
Judas Priest, Hell Bent for Leather.
Okay, I'm not sure if it was Priest. I was at Columbia, South Carolina at the time,
Oh, okay.
and my uncle used to take me to all the shows when I was a kid. He was
Good
just
uncle.
a
Cool.
little older, and he took me all the early 80, 79, 80. Although my dad was at the Kiss show. My dad took me and my sister
Nice.
and my uncle.
That's a good dad.
Well,
Nice.
he got to see Kiss way on early on, right? So yeah, we all sort of come from the Kiss to Van Halen transfer. This
Yeah.
our age group, and so '84 was the pinnacle of this rock show thing. And
Yeah, it was.
one of the things for you, you're now 16 or 15 or 16. You're in high school. You're probably what grade is that? 11th grade.
No, that would have been more like ninth, 10th grade because my graduation year was 87.
Right, mine too.
Yeah. So, and technically I didn't graduate till 88. But yeah, so somewhere ninth, 10th grade, I think was when 84
Yeah.
happened for us.
So we're all going through this thing at the same time at school. You get the necklace. You bought the necklace, right? You buy the shirt. You always wear the shirt at school after the
Yeah.
show.
Actually, money for me was real difficult when I was young. And I would have friends that I never got the shirts or any of that. I
No?
couldn't swing it. I did get a tour book. So I got a tour book in '82 and a tour book I think just a tour book in '82 because they usually have the year prior's photos in the next year's tour book. So that would have been photos from '81. So I got the '82 with the lion and all of that. I don't think I got one in '84.
But you got the necklace. You must have got the necklace.
Got the necklace. Yeah, had that.
Did you get that in '81 or '80?
Somewhere around in that time frame. I really don't remember.
I think that started in '80. I'm trying to do a video on the origins of that necklace and the whole story of that. But it's hard to kind of nail down some of the merchandise to where it was. But it looked like '80. There was some stuff in the tour books that they had the little sheet with you could order it, whatever.
Right.
Kind of thing. But yeah, I had one too, and I broke it in half.
That's the same. That's what happened to mine. It wasn't quite as large as the one that you're wearing. It was a little smaller,
Yep.
and
split along the right.
Yeah.
I was like super gluing it, trying to put it back together. I was like, no, But yeah. So yeah. So one other thing I want to ask you is that when you get to '84, of course, it switches over to Hagar after that point. But this is also when your life kind of switches. You get out of high school. When do you leave for California? And what was the genesis? What was the thought? What were you trying to achieve by doing that?
Okay.
Bands and all that.
All right. Well, so two things. So I didn't. So high school didn't end for me until the end of '87. Technically, the beginning of 1988. So and when Sammy came into the fold in '86, again, I knew how it worked and I went to the hotel.
Right.
This time, my good friend Brian, he lived in Florida and him and some of his friends had been following them around the Southeast. And so they met some of the people that worked for the band. And so there was somebody who worked for the band that they told me this guy's name. I forget what it is now, all these years later, Bob something. And so when I went to the hotel, now they're staying at a really nice hotel. They weren't staying at the one in 82, which was a medium hotel. Now they're at the nicest place in town, which was, I think they just call it the St. Paul Hotel, which is literally right across the street from the venue. And it's cold wintertime now. And there's some people outside the hotel, but the hotel won't let you in unless you know the name of a guest. And I knew the name of a guest because of this guy who worked for the band that didn't use an alias. And so, because my friend told me, he's like, just ask this guy, you know. So I was able to I went to the hotel, nobody gets in. I'm like, do you know a guest? I'm like, yeah, how about this name? And they're like, okay, they checked it. He's on the directory. You can come in. And so I get in and I go over to the hotel phone and I call up to this guy's room and I say, hey, I'm friends with so-and-so, these guys. He's like, who? You know, like my friends down in Florida, they probably, who? You know, right. He's like, you know, get out of here, kid, basically. Just nothing. Now, what am I going to do? You know? And so, and it's freezing outside, of course, Minnesota. And so I'm like, I'm just going to wait around, see if anybody comes through the lobby or anything. So the guy who I knew, his name, he didn't want nothing to do with me. I waited in that lobby for probably 6 hours.
Wow.
Watching people come and go. And all of a sudden, who comes walking in? Sammy Hagar with some beautiful woman. Mm-hmm. And that big, tall security guy, John, that you see in the Live Without a Net video. John, that was Sam's security guy. Okay. And I had a picture, a framed picture with me in my jacket of Ed that I wanted to try and get signed. You know, Killer Shot from '79. And so Sam walks in and he's walking through the lobby and I'm like, Sammy, hey, you know, and Big John comes to intervene and Sam's like, hey man, it's cool. You know, hey kid, how you doing? You know, Sam's super nice to me. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey man, you know, I'm friends with so-and-so that used to follow you down south. And he's like, oh yeah. That's cool, man. And he's like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, I just wanted to see if I could get hooked up for the show or whatever. And I go, where's Ed? You know? Right. And he goes, oh, I think he's white, man. He's upstairs crashing out in his room or whatever. And I go, oh, I got this photo. I wanted to see if I could get him to sign it. And he goes, oh, I'll sign it. And I'm like, no, that's cool. I turned him down because I don't want Sam's signature on the photo of Ed, right? You know. And also too, at that time, I have to be honest, I wasn't a Sammy fan at all, not even a little. So anyways. But now, of course, I'm a huge Sammy fan because I read his book and all these other great things he's done. So I adore the guy. But at the time, didn't like him at all. Right. And but here he is being super cool to me. And he goes, well, hey, I gotta roll, but I'll send my guy John back down and he'll hook you up. And I was like, wow, thanks, man. So off Sam goes with the girl. And the security guy. And then like 5 minutes later, John comes down and he's like, okay, what do you want? And I'm like, well, I want backstage passes. I want to go to sound check. I want tickets for the show. And he's like, you got it. And then he takes my name. And the next day I go downtown, skip school with my friend Jay and I. We go downtown, and this was one of the coolest moments ever because here we are at the back of the arena where the truck ramp goes down. You know, mm-hmm. That's how you get into the back area, right? And there's security all over the place, and there's hordes of people, and they're all sitting on the top of this ledge where the trucks go down into the back of the arena. They're all just sitting up here looking down, watching the people coming in and out, right? Security guys at the top of the ramp. Jay and I go to the top of the ramp. Tell them that, you know, hey, I'm give them my name. I'm here, you know, for the sound check and all of that. The guy walkie-talkies, and they're like, yeah, let him in. And so now we got security. My friend Jay and I get escorted down the ramp. And everybody up on the top is just like, oh, you bastards, you know, just right. Yelling at us, just totally jealous that we get to go in. And we walk in there and, you know, past the semis and everything. And there they are right there on stage playing sound check. They're playing like Johnny Cash tunes and all sorts of wild stuff. and they make us him, Jay and I, and then there's this other chick and some other guy. There's like 4 people, nobody else, and except for the crew all hustling around, and the band's on stage. So now there's Ed. He's, I don't know, 50 feet away. He kept looking over at us like, who's this? You know, he didn't understand what was going on. Like, who the hell are they? You know, and we're just standing around watching, gawking, you know, kids looking.
Right.
And they get done playing, and we get to see it all there. And then so Ed walks down, but he don't come over to us.
Right.
He just looks at us and kind of just walks by. You know, oh dang, you know that's. Then Sam comes over. Hey, everybody, how's it going? You know, and then Sammy's like, who wants to take pictures and stuff and sign in? So Sam, I got photos with Sam from '86. I should have sent you that.
You still
and, which I will. I'll dig it out and send it to you later today. And so he was so cool. The time that he gave us and the photos and everything that he did for us at that time, which was super nice. So anyways, then we go to the show. And of course, for those people who've seen the Dave tours, now see this tour,
right?
It was nothing. It's like there's no speaker cabinets on the stage.
Right.
Ed's wearing genie pants.
Right.
He's sitting down. What's happening here?
Right.
It was a totally different experience that you had to reacclimate to. Mm-hmm. And it was a great show and all of that. But when you're hot off of 3 Dave tours. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, whoa, this is, but we had a great time. And that was it. It was the backstage for the sound check, the meet and greet with Sam. I shouldn't say meet and greet. It wasn't, it was just, he just came over to us and
hung out,
took care of us like a really cool rock star, Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah. So I had to authentically eat my angst towards him and just go like, this guy's cool, so you better change your attitude, Craig. So, and I did, and then of course, like I said, as the years went on, I had other experiences with Sam at Cabo and stuff. But anyways, so that was my 5150 experience. Right. Then I saw him at the Monsters of Rock when they played that.
Where was that at?
Then that was at the place called the Metrodome in Minneapolis.
Okay, I saw him. I saw him in Memphis that year.
Gotcha. So that was the old dome that caved in recently or whatever, but then it was brand new. Okay. So wow. Every time I seen them, they were always at the St. Paul Civic Center. They played that same venue all the time. And even before I saw them, they'd play the St. Paul Civic Center, but in the Armory. There's a smaller venue there. Okay. So in 81, they got the main room. So I saw the Monsters of Rock tour. Not a lot to talk about there. I know Sammy dissed Prince, which was not a good idea in Prince's hometown. So he got booed. But anyways, so I don't, I didn't enjoy that. That was a whole day affair, all those bands and stuff. It was just, so, and especially having front row and all of these other experiences, it's just like, now you're just out in a stadium with, it's just like, this is no fun.
For you and me, we got to be down front in the face.
Yeah, or why, especially once you've been there, and then it's like, So, so now to get to your question about California. So I always knew I was going to move to California when I got out of high school, because my parents took my brother and sister and I on a family vacation out here in 1976. So we used to go on vacations every year and drive somewhere. You all get in the car and drive somewhere across country, I'd be laying in the back window up on the, you know what I mean? And
this is what you did back then, though. I mean, this is what families did. This was what we did. We got in a car together and we, like Vacation, the movie. This is what we did. We went out.
We did that, and we did it pretty much every year. And you're out there for like 2 weeks, all over the place, and every state felt different than the one you were just in. There was the chain stores weren't fully off yet. You know what I mean? And the different magazines to different publications, different radio stations, different haircuts. Everything changed from state line to state line, and that was awesome.
It was like different countries, like in Europe. or whatever.
Totally.
It's like a totally
Yeah.
different country from state to state. Like you said, you wanted to see what kind of fashions and what kind of things they had going on out west, because it was always like we got it to the east later or something. I don't know.
Totally. Yeah. Yes. So we came out to California in 76 for the bicentennial. And when we got back home, I said to my father, "Hey, how come we don't live out in vacation land?" And so I knew as soon as I was able to, I was going to live and relocate to vacation land. Right. And so what happened is in 1988, like I said before, I quit school in 87 for reasons I won't get into, but I decided to go back. And so I went back for a semester for one class. I needed a credit. I had to take one class for one semester in the new year of 88, and I graduated over the holidays. Okay. So, or I'm sorry, 87 into 88. Yeah. So that's when that happened. And then what happened is my friend from Florida that told me the guy's name to ask for when 5150 came around, mm-hmm. He now lived in Los Angeles. This is my friend Brian. Mm-hmm. So Brian now lives in LA, and he always told me, he's like, "Dude, move out here. You can stay on my couch. I can get you a job. Get out here. So I was like, "Yeah, okay, well, I'll work on it." So in August of 88, my good friend Tim, he called me and he goes, "Hey man, I got to go to boot camp in 5 days. I can drive you to California. If you want to go, we'll split the driving." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do it." And I had $88 and 3 guitars. And I told my folks on a Wednesday, "I'm moving to California on Saturday." And they're like, "Yeah, right." And I'm like, no, I'm moving to California on Saturday. And they're like, okay. And I never looked back. Wow. So I moved in with my friend Brian, and he got me a job. I was a telemarketer for a few months or whatever. And then I got my friend Jay, who I went to the 5150 show with. I said, "Jay, you got to move out here, man." And so I got a place, or I got Jay to move out and move in with where we were living. And then Jay and I broke away and got a place in Hollywood. And so moved into Hollywood basically in the beginning of 1989. And within a couple months of being in Hollywood, I got a job at the Guitar Center on Sunset Boulevard. All right. Yeah. That was a whole process. That was not easy to do. And I was only able to do it because when in the early 80s, I worked at a music store called the Rock Guitar Center. Mm-hmm. So this is before Guitar Center ever came to the Midwest. Okay. And I worked there for a few years, for a few hours a day or whenever I could. So I had experience. But when the Guitar Center came to Minnesota, which would have been in 87 or 88, I think it was 88, they had a big grand opening with radio, with a live radio simulcast and all this other stuff to get attention to it. Mm-hmm. And I was there checking out gear, and I was playing like off in some back room. And these guys came up to me and they said, "Hey man, could we record you playing when we come back for the next, promo that they're going to do to try and get people out to come to the store or whatever, Right. And I was like, "Yeah, I guess, And so I'm jamming in the store. They got the mic on it. It's going over the radio. And then, "Hey, come to get," all that stuff. That was enough for me to get my foot in the door with an interview at the Sunset Hollywood location. Because you can imagine everybody wanted to work there. Sure. And because it's nothing like what it is now. This was a totally different world, much like those early Van Halen concerts. It was a totally different vibe. And I actually went through probably 5 or 6 interviews before they hired me. It was not easy. And you had to talk to all these different departments and stuff. And I had a lot of experience and whatever, but so anyways, I got the job, and it was because of what happened at the manager I met at the other store. He put in a word for me. Okay. So now I'm working at Guitar Center. So 1 year to the day that I moved to California, which was Labor Day, 1988. So now Labor Day, 1989, one of my coworkers comes up to me and he goes, "Hey man, I gotta go take care of some stuff. And I have a client coming in and I want you to take care of him. His name is Dweezil Zappa. Do you know who that is?" I was like, "Yeah, I know who that is." I've been following Dweezil for many years. So anyways, Dweezil came in and I was helping him out and we hit it off. And basically I just point blankly asked him for his friendship. I said I was new in town. I didn't have a lot of friends here, and I would really like to be your friend. And he was like, "Yeah, I'll be your friend." And he gave me his number, and so Dweezil, pretty much within a week, we started hanging out, and he basically just brought me into his whole world. And for those who don't know, Dweezil had quite a history with Edward and Van Halen. So now all of a sudden I'm getting access to things that I normally wouldn't get, which would be namely Van Halen rehearsal.
Right. What year is this now that you're getting to see the rehearsals?
This would have been 1990.
Okay. The early,
so yeah, so this was for For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, that record.
Right.
So I was at the rehearsals for that tour, right when Ed got his striped cabinets, right when that guy sent him those striped shoes before, like, he just got them, like literally within a couple of days of when I had met him and went to rehearsal, he had just got those. Somebody just sent him those shoes for the first time.
Wow.
And so now I'm at a Van Halen rehearsal. Sammy's not at the rehearsal. It's just the three of them, and any tunes they do are older tunes, and Mike's singing them, and that was cool.
Where's this at? This at a rehearsal?
This is a rehearsal studio out in Van Nuys, and it's or out in that area. I always want to call it the record plant or the radio station or something like that, but I don't remember the exact name of the place. But they had the full back line.
Right.
So it was a big place. It wasn't like a hangar with the full stage, but It was the full back line in the room, you know.
Right.
So that was a really cool experience because I got more personable with Ed. So he knows me by name. He kept saying my name to me, which was funny every time he'd come around me.
Right.
And then I had a cool experience. I was playing darts, and he came out, and it was just him and I. And he's like, "Oh, let me play it." So now we're playing darts, and we had a pretty cool conversation at that time. So and he invited me back, you know, and it was like he was very nice and kind. And so
what kind of conversations you have with him when you've come from total fan in the street, literally chasing him, to being with him shooting darts? What kind of conversations do you have with Edward Van Halen when you're shooting darts?
to be honest, it's the kind of conversation that I would have with you offline.
Right.
But I can tell you that one of it related to the fact about his shoes and how I said that, you should sell those things. And he didn't want to do that at that time. He thought it would cause a beef with Sam and Sam's 5150 clothing line. Right. So it was rather personal stuff that he was talking to me about. Right. And he just opened up to me, and I don't know why he did, but he did.
It seems like, based upon all the people that I've interviewed, plus, just the knowledge I have from some other folks, that we talked about this a little bit in our emails, that he had this way of disarming you from his legend. You 1 minute you're like, oh my God, it's Eddie Van Halen. And the next minute you're like, oh, this is just a regular dude. And you forget he's Eddie Van Halen. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that he didn't like to. I mean, I don't think he didn't like the fact that this is just my viewpoint on this, and I don't really know the exact words, but if he walked into a room, he would change the whole vibe of the room because of who he was and his legend and all of that. Sure. And I think that he didn't like that. Right. He just wanted to be just a regular guy at times. So he was. I think you're right about that. The last thing that he wants to do is talk about guitar and how great he is. I don't, you know what I mean? So I never talked to him about guitar, only until it was many years later when him and I got into those types of conversations. But for the probably first half dozen times I was ever around him, I never talked anything musical or whatever. He was into cars and other things. And, so it was, so I never came at him like that. Also, too, I never did photos or anything with him until that one I sent you that was at that NAMM show that's coming up. So sure. I didn't ask him for. I actually did get. Again, this is after I kind of had more of a relationship with him, where when I was working at the Guitar Center, he came to the store with Al when Al was doing the handprints with Ginger Baker and Carmine Appice. So they were all there at the same time. Ed was with them, and so I had already had experience with Ed, and I happened to have my Tony Iommi photo with Ed and Tony. You know, that there's a picture of them in '78 where Ed's wearing that crazy silver shirt.
Sure.
And
Sure.
and I was like, I showed him that picture, and he's like, oh God, look at that shirt, you know. And I'm like, would you consider signing this for me, man? And he's like, yeah. So he signed it for me. So that was one thing that I asked him, but I never tried to do that stuff with him. It was only at a very strategic time, like that photo that I have, because at that point I had been with him enough times where I was like, man, I really want this picture, and I don't want it to be a problem, and I don't want to come off like I'm this guy, you know what I mean? And so it was all timed perfectly, and he was so cool about it, and it shows in the photo. And there's another one or two photos that we have from that same thing together, but that was a can of worms in a sense, where when I asked him, because that was for, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping around, Jeff. That's the NAMM show, 1992, I think.
91, yeah.
91. Okay.
We were both at, yeah.
Yeah, 91. So so this is all basically building right up to our time together.
Right.
And
so we didn't know we had together.
yeah. And now I think actually what happened before this though is I went to Cabo. So for the opening night of the Cabo Wabo Club. So they flew, Dweezil and I flew down in a prop jet to Cabo for 4 days, and were there for the opening night show. And I filmed that whole show, which was great. And then again, more interactions. And this was really funny too, because, well, that was just another otherworldly experience, off in another country, super hot, in this killer restaurant. You know, it was brand new at the time, and to be there and to be a part of those shows or show that I saw, that was just really, really cool. And also to hear them playing in that environment, you know. So I had seen a rehearsal, I'd seen plenty of concerts, but now this is a club. You know, so I'm seeing them at these different levels and these different experiences, and you know, as somebody who absorbs experiences as you're trying to learn, you know, all of these things tell you stuff. You know, that's what Ed was playing through a Soldano at that gig, but it was killer. He sounded great, you know, really awesome.
Yeah, so when we go to NAMM, he's got that Soldano again, the blue one that he carried around for a while. They had two apparently that he got from Mike. And the NAMM show 91, it was the NAMM Jam with Steve Morris, Albert Lee, Sterling Ball, and I think his sons. Is that right?
I think it might have been his cousin that plays in that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were there. I was down front by chance, sitting on the floor in front of on the left side of the stage. Ed was on the right. You were next to me. We didn't know this until just a couple of days ago when we were swapping photos.
Yesterday.
Yeah, right. That we were literally within 10 feet or less of each other.
Yes. That's incredible.
At this event in 1991. Steve Brown from Trickster was on my show, and he was also there with us at that, and we all witnessed this thing together. What was your impression of that night? And you know, this is just another night, but this is also the picture that we're going to insert into this episode that you took. Tell a little bit about that whole situation. You know, I guess you were there with Guitar Center.
No, I was there with Dweezil. So ever since Dweezil and I became friends, we go to NAMM together. So starting in 89 or 90, every time for the most part, when he goes to NAMM, I go with him. So we're NAMM buddies, you know? And so we go, and it's Sterling Ball. And so Sterling Ball has a suite at the inn. So Dweezil, I go as Dweezil's guest, basically. So we go to the private party that Sterling has, and we're in the suite with him. And so there's two shows. There's two NAMM shows, or two shows where those guys played that night. And in between them, there's a dinner in Sterling's suite, and so it was cheeseburgers and stuff. So that's why, like, where that photo is. This is crazy. So we're in this suite, and we're drinking beers together. And Ed used to carry around a gold Indian head coin, and that's how he opened beers.
Oh, really?
So we didn't have a bottle opener. So every time we have a beer, it's like, Ed, can you open my beer? So he'd pull out his coin, and he was a pro at popping open beers. So anyways, and again, we're not talking guitars or anything like that. It's just everything else but.
Right.
And so there's a back deck that's outside, and we're outside together eating cheeseburgers. And now right next to me, I mean, this is going to sound stupid, but watching Edward eat is like, it's like he eats,
Right.
And again, it's just like, you don't want to gawk at the guy, but there's something so alluring about his essence, and it's this whole thing. But it's like, yeah, here he is, stuffing his face, eating a cheeseburger, and so we were all hanging out. Jeff Watson was there, Dweezil was there, I was there, Sterling was there, and maybe 5 other people that I don't recall. Steve and Albert, and so we get done with the cheeseburgers, and I'm thinking, okay, we're safe because we're inside here, we're in the back, and it's mellow and everything. So I was thinking, it's like, you know what, I need to get this photo with Ed. Like, now's the time, I want a picture with him, and I don't think it'll be a problem. So I asked him, I'm like, hey, Ed, man, would it be a problem, to get a photo? And he's like, oh, Craig, man, let's take a photo, and so Dweezil took the pictures, and then as soon as that happened, it's like uncorking oh, Ed, can I get it? Oh, Ed. And then it was just photo fest. And I was like, I'm so sorry, man. He's like, don't worry about it. Okay. And then he this is funny too. I had to take him to the bathroom. Like out to, yeah. So I was like his kind of security guy for one outing to, and at NAMM, it's it's just wherever you just like, so, but that was super cool. So then we go over, and all of made available to me through Dweezil. Right. So, and then, so then we go to the show, the one that you and I were at. And so I'm basically backstage on the stage across from Ed. So I just, had my clear vision of him, just watch that whole show, took some pictures of it, that are very similar to yours. Right. And it was amazing. But I'll tell you what struck me from that show. You got 3, I was a little worried for him up against Steve Morse and Albert Lee, right? Right. Thinking of, I mean, you got to go back to that early 20s mindset where there's a little bit of competitiveness in that aspect, right? Like, now I don't view that at all competitive anymore, but at that time you're like, oh, this is going to be like they're cutting heads, you know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Sure, right.
And Albert Lee and Steve Morse are complete masters of their instruments. There's no doubt about it. Technically, they are phenomenal players. But what I learned from that performance was innovation is king. Ed does not play like those guys.
Right.
But he blended right in with what his uniqueness of what he does. Mm-hmm. And to me, because each time they're trading off, and you're just like, okay, now you want them to kind of beat them, right? You know what I mean? Like I said, that competitiveness. And in my mind, the way I saw it, the way I felt it is that Ed prevailed for me, even though it's not a contest.
Right.
But he brought, even though it's like he created what he's doing, and the innovation and the ingenuity, to me, trumped technical skill. Mm-hmm. And so I had that realization that it's more important. I mean, it's great to be technically gifted, no doubt about it, but innovation is where it's at.
Right.
And so that's what I took away from that, other than all those other experiences of like, oh, this is cool. We're eating cheeseburgers. We're doing, this kind of stuff. And I'm walking down a hall with him. I mean, this is cool. You know what I mean? Just him, that's cool.
That show in particular was one of my earliest NAMM shows. I think I might have went to one before that, but and that
the Steve Stevens one. You saw
Yeah,
the Steve
yeah,
Stevens
yeah.
one,
Which would have been what,
like 86,
86 or 7, something like that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that the one we went in is 91. So the 90, I think it was one of those years I had cornered, I was in the Marriott, and
Uh,
I just happened to corner Watson. This was the same year.
yeah.
Watson, Eric Johnson, and Steve Morris together. And I got a picture of all three of them together. And this is, way back, right? So
Wow.
I had put that online, and Watson saw it. He posted it on his, I think on his
Uh,
Facebook profile or whatever. But yeah, it was a cool picture of the three of them together, just random, you know.
that's
And that's how NAM was back then. We'd all hang out in the
oh
bar with those guys, and
yeah,
it's all these cool moments where you get to meet all these people and talk to them and hang out.
totally cool. Yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
And it's one thing I always look forward to. We've been off for a couple of years with the pandemic, and just going out and being in that energy of all those people that we all from all over the world get together and you exchange. Like we were talking about the energy that Edward gave us from his personality and his whole thing. You get that at NAM. You get that feeling like we're all we're all part of the same energy that's changing the world in our little way.
Yep.
And some of us, like in Edward's case, in a huge way. So that NAM show, after that, you're continuing to have interactions with him and the Weasel, of course, and you are friends.